James Bond, the world's most famous spy. But before he became the legendary 007, he was just a young recruit with a bad habit of ignoring orders, blowing things up, and somehow making every situation dramatically worse before making it better. Today, we're breaking down the complete story of 007 First Light, from a helicopter crash in Iceland to the moment that Bond finally earns the number 007. Along the way, we'll encounter rogue agents, evil billionaires, secret conspiracies, devastating losses, and enough near death experiences to make HR shut down MI6 permanently. So, grab your vodka martini, shaken, not stirred, and let's dive into the origin story of James Bond. So it's 2026, and James Bond isn't a world famous spy yet. He's just a Royal Navy air crewman in training. He's flying over the freezing waters of Iceland on what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission. 18 scientists and engineers have vanished. A strange heat signature has been detected offshore, and nobody really knows what's going on, which, as it turns out, is never a good sign. Things get much worse when a missile suddenly blows another helicopter out of the sky. Bond's aircraft is damaged, he gets thrown into the icy ocean, and somehow becomes the only survivor. It's not exactly the kind of career development opportunity that he was looking for, but it is what it is. Stranded, freezing, and hunted by armed mercenaries, Bond receives a call from an MI6 handler who immediately takes control of the mission. Following their instructions, he infiltrates a mysterious camp and discovers that the attackers belong to Arrowhead, a ruthless international gang of former soldiers and mercenaries. But that's not the biggest problem. Hidden inside a nearby dome is a crashed object emitting strange signals that mess with Bond's communications and his brain. After being exposed to a dangerous nerve agent, he's told to find an antidote. The problem? There are two syringes and nobody knows which one is correct. So Bond does what any reasonable future secret agent would do. He injects both and hopes for the best. Thankfully, he survives and uncovers a shocking secret. The object that crashed in Iceland appears to be part of a satellite, and Arrowhead is trying to steal whatever valuable technology remains. Rather than wait for extraction, Bond decides to rescue the surviving hostages himself. He frees the captives, he finds explosives MI6 had secretly planted around the camp, and he leads everyone in a desperate escape towards the cliffs. With mercenaries closing in, Bond detonates the entire facility, destroying the operation and saving the hostages just as rescue finally arrives. Not bad for his first day on the job. 1 month after turning an Icelandic Black Ops mission into a very expensive fireworks display, James Bond is summoned to MI6 headquarters. There, he meets a mysterious woman that guides him and refuses to introduce herself, although her secret identity lasts about 5 seconds before someone blurts out her name in the hallway. This is Eve Moneypenny. Moneypenny takes Bond to meet M, who immediately informs him that MI6 is still annoyed about the priceless asset he blew up. However, instead of firing him, she offers him something much bigger, a place in the newly revived Double O training program. There's just one problem. The selection process is already over. 6 elite recruits remain, and Bond will be number 7. And nobody's happy about it. At the training facility in Malta, instructor John Greenway makes it clear that he would rather launch Bond into the Mediterranean than train him. Bond gets absolutely demolished in combat training by star recruit Lennox Monroe and quickly becomes the least popular person on the course. Still, over the next few weeks, Bond catches up on months of missed training. He learns combat, driving, shooting, and the most important spy skill of all, getting into unnecessary fights. Eventually, Bond passes his exams and earns a second chance from M, who reveals one of MI6's biggest secrets, a powerful quantum computer called Theia. It predicts threats and calculates odds, including the less than 1% chance Bond had of surviving Iceland. M's response: yeah, but you survive, and that's exactly why she wants it. Bond is then introduced to Q Branch, where he receives a high tech watch capable of scanning and hacking targets, because apparently every spy gets a cool gadget before they're trusted with basic responsibilities. 6 months later, the recruits face a real world field exercise at a London nightclub. Bond accidentally flirts with the wrong woman, starts a bar fight, hacks a suspect's phone, impersonates an intelligence contact, and helps expose a government leak, which somehow counts as passing the test. Anyway, by the end of the night, Bond and Monroe barely make it out, bruised but successful. Then every recruit receives the same message from M: report to headquarters at 8 a.m. And judging by Bond's luck so far, that's probably not going to be a routine meeting. The next morning, the Double O recruits are expecting another day of training, but instead, M walks in and effectively says, class dismissed. A major crisis has emerged. A former Double O agent known as 009, real name Reese Beckett, has resurfaced after more than a decade in hiding. Accused of treason and responsible for helping shut down the Double O program, Beckett now claims that he possesses evidence of a massive conspiracy within the British state. Naturally, nobody knows whether he's a whistleblower, a traitor, or both. The mission takes the recruits to Slovakia, where Beckett has arranged to meet Greenway at a luxury mountain hotel hosting the World Chess Championship. Because if you're planning a secret rendezvous, why not do it in a building packed with world leaders, security personnel, and cameras? Bond's assignment is particularly glamorous. While everyone else gets exciting undercover roles, Greenway sticks Bond with being the driver and orders him to stay in the car. Bond lasts about 5 minutes before he starts disobeying orders, because after spotting a suspicious blonde man throwing luggage off a balcony, he abandons his post and begins investigating. Soon, he discovers the mystery man keeps changing disguises: bellhop, businessman, chef, you name it. The deeper Bond digs, the worse things get. There's a murder security chief, a fake maid, explosives being smuggled through the hotel, and somewhere in the middle of it all, 009 arrives. Then disaster strikes. Bombs detonate throughout the hotel, chaos erupts, and Bond discovers that the mysterious blonde assassin actually has an identical twin, because apparently one deadly assassin wasn't enough. After defusing one bomb, another explodes anyway. Bond survives, he rescues Cressida from the burning building, and joins a high speed chase throughout the mountains pursuing 009. Along the way, the fake maid reveals that she's supposedly a French intelligence agent, supposedly being the key word. The chase ends at an airfield where Beckett escapes aboard a plane. Bond manages to board it, fight off mercenaries, hack the flight controls, and then gets thrown out of the aircraft. Luckily, he steals a parachute on the way down, and honestly, at this point, surviving impossible situations is becoming his main job skill. Back in London, the consequences hit hard. Monroe, Singh, and Kingsley are all dead. Nash is missing, and Cressida is permanently injured. The Double O program is hanging by a thread, and MI6 is facing an international scandal. And 009 remains free. But Bond's investigation has uncovered a new lead. The trail now points toward a notorious black market city in Africa known as Aleph. And that's exactly where Bond and Greenway are headed next. Following the trail left by Double O Nine, Bond and Greenway arrive at Aleph, a lawless floating city built around a massive ship graveyard and run by a pirate king known as Bothma. And if Bond thought things were strange before, he's in for a surprise. Almost immediately, they witness Bothma publicly execute a man accused of withholding money from the city. The man's excuse, he spent it on medicine for his sick daughter. For a moment, it looks like Bothma might show mercy, but then he cuts the man's head off. So, safe to say, negotiations are off to a rocky start. The pair learn that Bothma's ambitious second in command, Ali, may know where 009 is hiding. Unfortunately, getting access to him requires buying into a high stakes auction with an entry fee of $100,000. Since MI6 apparently forgot to issue a company credit card, Bond has to earn the money himself. And depending on how things play out, this involves fistfights, shooting competitions, scams, theft, and enough side quests to make an RPG developer proud. Once inside the auction, Bond discovers that nobody is bidding with cash, but instead buyers offer favors, political influence, and access to strategic locations around the world. When their own bid falls short, Bond solves the problem by casually offering decades of MI6 intelligence and Greenway himself. Greenway is understandably thrilled. And after the auction, Ali finally talks. In exchange for MI6 helping him take control of Aleph and some tickets to a Manchester United match, he reveals where 009 is hiding. Bond and Greenway rush to a houseboat gifted to 009 by Bothma, but they are too late. 009 is dead. Whoever got to him tortured him, killed him, and left behind a trail of clues. Among them are surveillance photos of MI6 personnel, plans for the Slovakia bombing, and evidence suggesting that Beckett wasn't behind the attack at all. In fact, he may have been the target. The clues lead Bond and Greenway to an abandoned shipwreck connected to something called Operation Spyglass, and this is a classified mission from years earlier. Before they can investigate properly, Bathman's men capture them and suspend them over a pit of very hungry crocodiles. Because every Bond story eventually reaches a point where crocodiles become involved. Luckily, Greenway remembers a crucial detail. Bothma has spent decades searching for his missing sister, Harmony. Promising information about her buys them enough time to escape. At the shipwreck, they finally uncover proof that 009 was innocent. Unfortunately, mercenaries attack before they can leave. The evidence is destroyed, their vehicle is blown apart, and a mysterious man wearing a golden mask nearly kills them both. Out of ammo and surrounded, Bond and Greenway prepare for the end, and then Bothma arrives with an army of pirates and saves the day, which is not a sentence anyone expected to hear when this chapter started. Back in London, Bond and Greenway have a problem. The evidence proving 009's innocence is gone, which means that as far as MI6 and the rest of the world are concerned, Reese Beckett was responsible for the disaster in Slovakia. Case closed. Or at least that's what Greenway thinks. He tells Bond to just forget about it and get out of town for a few days. Bond instead heads home, where he's hit with the memories of Monroe, Cressida, and everything the team has lost. Unlike everyone else at MI6, Bond is having a hard time pretending that none of it bothers him. And then things get worse. Much worse. Returning to the apartment, Bond discovers what appears to be a suicide note written in his own handwriting. Before he can figure that out, assassins break in and try to kill him. Apparently, somebody's decided the subtlety is overrated. After fighting off attackers inside the apartment and chasing one across the rooftops of London, Bond recovers a phone belonging to one of the assassins. With Moneypenny's help, he traces it to a gala event celebrating the 125th anniversary of Webb Industries. And suddenly, all roads seem to be leading back to Sir Nicholas Webb. Sneaking into the event, Bond works his way through security, bluffs his way into restricted areas, and eventually gains access to the CCTV system. The trail leads him to the basement archives where he comes face to face with one of the Murto twins. These are the blonde twins from Slovakia. Anyway, after a brutal fight involving museum exhibits and far too many sharp objects, Bond finally gets revenge for Monroe and eliminates Taro Murto. But the real shock comes moments later, because through the assassin's earpiece, Bond overhears orders to assassinate Greenway. Even worse, the orders appear to be coming from inside Webb Industries themselves. So, convinced that Sir Nicholas Webb is involved, Bond pushes deeper into the gala and encounters the mysterious fake French agent once again. Her real name is Isola, and before Bond can learn much more, both of them are drugged and captured. When Bond wakes up, he discovers something even more disturbing. Sir Nicholas Webb has a son named Damien, and Damien is absolutely insane. While Sir Nicholas appears cold and calculating, Damien seems to genuinely enjoy the whole kidnapping and torture thing. As Bond endures a mixture of beatings and sarcastic banter, he secretly hacks Damien's phone, uncovering references to a place called The Purge and a mysterious data wipe operation. Luckily, Isola wakes up just in time, takes out the guards, and helps Bond escape. Outside, Bond learns one final surprise. Greenway didn't need rescuing. Damien's elite streak team found him first, and Greenway wiped them out by himself despite having an injured arm. At this point, Bond is beginning to realize why Greenway was considered one of MI6's best. Now the gloves are off. The Webbs are trying to kill them. And for the first time, Bond and Greenway decide that they're done reacting. It's time to make the first move. With the Webb family now firmly at the top of Bond's suspect list, he and Greenway decide that it's time to stop chasing clues and start breaking into corporate headquarters, as one does. Using fake executive credentials supplied by Moneypenny, the pair infiltrate Webb Industries headquarters while the company is carrying out something called Code White, a full-scale deletion of sensitive data. In other words, someone is trying very hard to make evidence disappear. Along the way, Bond discovers some disturbing details. Damien Webb, the company's security chief, isn't just a spoiled billionaire heir. He is a former mercenary commander linked to war crimes, failed coups, and a private military company called Riptide. The Murto twins were part of his team, and pretty much everyone involved seems to have a resume that belongs in a war crimes tribunal. Meanwhile, the mysterious fake French agent is finally identified as Isola Vale. She's been secretly working inside Webb Industries for months and appears to be planning some kind of operation of her own. Eventually, Bond and Greenway reach the entrance to the Purge, Webb's heavily protected data vault. But before they can get inside, they discover something alarming. There are bodies everywhere. Turns out that Isola got there first. After an awkward reunion, she helps them bypass security and points Bond towards Sir Nicholas Webb's penthouse office. Inside of it, Bond discovers a hidden code word, Basilisk. No, not the giant snake from Harry Potter. This one unlocks the Purge. Bond barely escapes before Nicholas and Damien enter the office, and hidden nearby, he overhears them discussing plans to flee and, more importantly, plans to send Damien to Vietnam to clean up a loose end. The loose end is almost certainly evidence. Inside the perch, Bond and Greenway finally access the files they've been chasing for the entire game, and what they find changes everything. Thea, the miracle AI that transformed MI6, is flawed, and not slightly flawed, catastrophically flawed. For years, it has been producing false intelligence. Every time it makes a mistake, Sir Nicholas Webb covers it by sending Damien and his operatives to alter crime scenes, silence witnesses, and fabricate evidence until reality matches the computer's predictions. Then comes the biggest revelation of all. Operation Nightfall, the mission that branded 009 as a traitor, was built on faulty intelligence. 009 never betrayed MI6. Greenway spent a decade hating a man that was innocent. But before they can process this bombshell, Sir Nicholas Webb confronts them personally. And what follows is less of a villain monologue and more of a TED talk about why lying to the world is acceptable if artificial intelligence eventually gets good enough. Needless to say, Bond isn't buying it. The conversation ends with poison gas flooding the room, gunfire erupting everywhere, and Bond and Greenway stealing a helicopter to escape. Back at MI6, things somehow get even worse. Because Sir Nicholas Webb has already framed Bond and Greenway as terrorists. Arrest warrants are being prepared, politicians are turning against MI6, and M is running out of options. But she has one last play, a Black Ops mission to Vietnam. Because if the evidence exists anywhere, that's where Damien Webb is headed. And Bond is going after him. So Bond heads to Vietnam, where Damien Webb is busy cleaning up yet another one of Thea's mistakes. This time, the AI incorrectly linked a dead eco-terrorist named Caliban to a series of murders targeting environmental scientists. The problem is that Caliban has been dead for months. Unfortunately for everyone involved, Damien's solution isn't to correct the mistake. It's to commit a new murder that makes the original prediction look accurate. You know, normal corporate behavior. So, posing as a tourist at a luxury resort known as the Pearl, Bond begins identifying potential targets. After some old fashioned detective work and some not so subtle flirting with geneticist Teresa Lorca, he discovers that Damien has already arrived, and he's planning to kill Teresa. Bond interrupts the operation, rescues hostages, saves Teresa from being burned alive, and finally settles his score with Nico Murto, eliminating the last of the assassin twins. But Damien escapes, for the moment. After being captured and tied up in an abandoned quarry, Bond comes face to face with Damien once again. During their confrontation, Damien lets slip a crucial piece of information, a mysterious project called Hyperion. Then Greenway arrives, guns blazing, and the chase is back on. What follows is a full-scale assault through the quarry as Bond and Greenway carve their way through Damien's mercenaries. Eventually, Bond catches up to Damien, and the two have one final showdown. Damien boosts himself with an experimental combat drug, turning himself into a one-man boss fight. It doesn't help. Bond defeats him and finishes the job in suitably dramatic fashion by dropping a mountain of metal pipes on top of his face. With Damien dead, the victory should feel satisfying, but instead it becomes heartbreaking because Greenway has been badly wounded. Knowing that he doesn't have much time left, he shares one final conversation with Bond. He tells him that MI6 needs people with heart and warns him not to let the job consume him the way it consumed him, and quietly passes away. Back in London, the crisis reaches its peak. Sir Nicholas Webb is leaking classified intelligence and threatening to release even more unless the government grants him immunity. Faced with potential disaster, the government caves. Webb walks free, M is furious, Bond is furious, pretty much everyone in MI6 is furious. But amidst the chaos, one detail keeps nagging at Bond. How did Webb know so much about Thea's mistakes if nobody had access to the system? Then Bond remembers Damien's final warning, Hyperion, a hidden counterpart to Thea, a second quantum system. If Hyperion exists, it could explain everything. Moneypenny immediately points out that investigating it would be considered high treason. After sharing a final drink with Q in memory of Greenway, Bond quietly gathers his equipment and prepares to leave. And then his phone rings. It's Isola, and she knows exactly where Hyperion is hidden, deep inside the Antarctic Circle, which means Bond's mission and the fight against Sir Nicholas Webb is not over yet. With MI6 surrendering to Sir Nicholas Webb's demands and granting him immunity, Bond decides to do what Bond does best: ignore orders. Following a lead from Isola, he heads for the most Bond location imaginable, a secret Webb Industries facility hidden in Antarctica. During the journey, Isola finally reveals some of her motivations. Her parents were scientists who worked on the original Theia project. When they discovered the deception surrounding the system, they tried to expose it. But before they could, they conveniently died in a plane crash. A crash that now looks a lot less accidental. After a brief stop involving a Japanese submarine and an implied off-screen romance, the pair infiltrate Webb's Antarctic research complex. The facility is essentially the birthplace of Webb Industries' most advanced technologies, packed with experimental robotics, AI systems, and enough security to make Fort Knox look welcoming. Once inside, Bond and Isola split up to investigate. Bond infiltrates the command center while Isola digs through company records, and what they discover is far worse than either of them expected. Project Hyperion isn't simply a backup for Thea, it's the next stage. A second quantum intelligence system designed to give Sir Nicholas Webb complete control over information, intelligence services, and ultimately governments themselves. Even worse, they uncover Operation Rubicon. This is a plan to engineer a political crisis, frame the current prime minister, install Foreign Secretary Stephen Bright as his replacement, and place Britain entirely under Webb's influence. In short, Nicholas Webb isn't trying to influence governments anymore, he's trying to replace them. The alarm is raised before they can finish their investigation. Security floods the facility, killer robots are activated, and Bond fights his way deeper into the complex until he finally reaches the heart of Hyperion. Waiting for him is Sir Nicholas Webb, and for the first time, the two men finally face each other directly. Webb reveals one last insurance policy. His health monitor is connected to a dead man's switch. If his heart stops beating, every piece of stolen MI6 intelligence is automatically released to the world. Kill him and England burns. Bond is forced to stand down. Meanwhile, Isola has made her move. Ignoring Bond's warnings, she steals Hyperion's quantum core and attempts to escape. Before leaving, Webb twists the knife even further. He reveals that Isola's tragic backstory was another manipulation. Her parents' death, her quest for revenge, everything had been carefully exploited to turn her into exactly what he needed: a weapon. Bond then races after her across the frozen wilderness, and the final chase ends at the shoreline where a submarine waits to extract Isola and the stolen core. Knowing the consequences if Hyperion survives, Bond makes the only choice he can. He shoots the core, destroying Hyperion once and for all. The submarine immediately abandons Isola, leaving her stranded. And with the threat finally neutralized, Bond contacts MI6 and reports success. The mission is over, Hyperion is gone, Webb's master plan has been stopped. But there is one small problem. From MI6 perspective, Bond has just committed high treason. So when he and Isola return to London, they are not welcomed as heroes, they are arrested. Bond insists that he acted alone, protecting the people who helped him. Meanwhile, MI6 attempts to uncover Isola's true identity, only to discover almost nothing. Whoever created her and trained her has erased every trail. Before anyone can figure out what to do with either of them, chaos erupts. Alarms begin blaring throughout MI6 headquarters, armed soldiers storm the building, and suddenly England's most secure intelligence facility turns into a war zone. The attackers are highly trained, well equipped, and moving with a clear objective. They're heading straight for Thea. Bond escapes his cell and immediately starts helping defend the facility. Fighting his way through the underground complex, he discovers that the assault isn't random at all. It's a retrieval mission, and the man leading it should be dead. Damian Webb. He is back. Somehow he survived Vietnam, and he is now wearing a heavily armored exosuit and intends to steal Thea's quantum core. He succeeds. After forcing Moneypenny to remove the core, Damien stabs her and escapes into the tunnels beneath MI6. Thankfully, Q arrives in time to save her life and points Bond toward a prototype vehicle called the Valhalla, which is essentially Bond's way of solving problems with overwhelming firepower. What follows is one final chase through the underground tunnels as Bond tears through Damien's mercenaries and attempts to stop him before he destroys MI6 entirely. Because Damien's backup plan is simple: blow up the tunnels, flood the facility, and kill everyone. The final battle sees Bond using the environment to damage Damien's exosuit piece by piece until both men are sent crashing into the water below. Damien finally meets his end, and this time for real. But Thea's core survives, because at the last second, Isola appears. She rescues the core, and then she rescues Bond. And then she vanishes again. Sometime later, Bond stands beside the grave of John Greenway. M joins him and reveals that the political fallout has finally settled. Sir Nicholas Webb is dead, and the conspiracy has collapsed. And all charges against Bond have been dropped. Even better, Bond is finally being assigned his 00 number. Technically, he's offered 001, but Bond declines. After all, he was the 7th recruit in the revived 00 program. There is only one number he wants: 7, officially becoming James Bond 007. But despite everything that's happened, Bond knows that the story isn't over. Someone rescued Isola, someone has Thea's core, and someone has been manipulating events from the shadows long before Webb entered the picture. M agrees. There is another player in the game, one that they haven't identified yet, and finding them will probably be Bond's next mission. So that's the story of 007 First Light, an origin story that takes Bond from reckless Royal Navy recruit to fully fledged 007 while setting up a much larger conspiracy for whatever comes next. And if this ending is anything to go by, James Bond's first mission was only the beginning. Now that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more gaming story recaps and guides, and let me know in the comments what you thought of 007 First Light and where you think Bond's journey goes next. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you on the next video.